We have to respect the rule of law. We have to respect law enforcement. We have to fund law enforcement. We should have 3,000 law enforcement officers in Washington, D.C. You're going to be down to 1,500 here shortly because of the way that the city council treats law enforcement. It is unacceptable.
The gentleman from South Carolina lectured the people of Washington, D.C. about criminal incidents taking place here. Of course, there are criminal incidents taking place also in South Carolina in the exact same way. But how about something that took place even closer to home? How about the violent mob insurrection where a mob incited by the ex-president violently assaulted Capitol Police officers and Metropolitan Police Department officers who were forced to deploy to the Capitol, and nearly 150 of them ended up brutalized, wounded, and hospitalized after being hit over the head or in the chest or stabbed or speared by steel pipes, Confederate battle flags, Trump flags, and American flags, shamefully.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here. During a House Oversight Committee hearing, Representative William Timmons from South Carolina's 4th District addressed the issue of safety in Washington, D.C.
In my few short years serving the 4th District of South Carolina in Congress, I've watched a once proud city succumb to violent crime, vagrancy, and fall into lawlessness.
He expressed concerns about the rising crime rates in the city and urged D.C. council members to take action to make the city safer.
I want to, in good faith, tell parents from my district that it's safe for the kids to come visit the nation's capital on their school trip. But right now, I can't do that. I actually do the exact opposite when people come to my office. I tell them that D.C. is not safe. They should take Ubers.
Timmons, a vocal critic of Democratic policies and a supporter of the MAGA movement, appears to overlook the violence and disorder of the January 6th Capitol attack while decrying efforts to reform law enforcement. And Representative Jamie Raskin seized upon the opportunity to absolutely embarrass the Chicken Little wannabe.
And yet we have the ex-president and a number of people who are his sycophants over on that side of the aisle describing people who are in jail for that, a majority of them having pled guilty for those offenses, the others convicted after due process of law, calling those people hostages. A hostage is someone who's been illegally abducted by a terrorist or a criminal entity like Hamas and held for a financial or a political ransom. And yet, shamefully, there are people on that side of the aisle who call the prisoners who've been convicted after having been given every aspect of American due process and right to counsel, they're calling them hostages or political prisoners, like Alexei Navalny or Nelson Mandela. That's where they've come to. So they want to denounce a criminal event that happened 6 blocks away. What about the massive criminal event, the most massive criminal event in the history of the nation's capital that came right into this chamber, forcing the senators and the representatives to flee? And they won't say a word about it, and yet they get up and they denounce lawlessness. And they won't even denounce lawlessness that comes right into the Congress and the Capitol of the United States.
In a pointed exchange, Representative Jamie Raskin effectively dismantled Timmons' arguments by underscoring inconsistencies in his stance. He also questions his commitment to public safety, given his controversial record and support for downplaying the January 6th insurrection. Jamie Raskin's powerful closing arguments at the January 6th trial shed light on his intense scrutiny of Representative William Timmons and others like him. Raskin left no doubt about Donald Trump's role in inciting the violent Capitol insurrection, vividly describing the chaos and harm it caused. Raskin highlighted the consequences of Trump's actions, from physical injuries to emotional trauma suffered by individuals like Sergeant Aquilino Gonell and Michael Ayers. He warned against the dangers of authoritarianism and political violence, emphasizing the importance of defending democracy and freedom. Referencing Raskin's words helps understand why he was relentless in challenging figures like Timmons, who aligns with Trump's dangerous rhetoric. Timmons himself has been embroiled in several controversies. Notably, he and his wife Sarah Timmons filed for separation following allegations of infidelity during his campaign. The scandal deepened with an affair involving a socialite, which led to reports that Timmons influenced police and judges to have a man arrested to further his affair with her. These incidents have cast a shadow over Timmons' personal and political life, drawing significant media attention, despite his alignment with the Republican Party's family's values values rhetoric. His actions tell a different story.
You bring a couple million, 8, 10, 12 million people into this country, and you lure them with social safety net programs, you lure them with government benefits, and they go to the blue states. They go to the cities that offer wildly disproportionate social benefits to those in need.
Leave it to MAGA to openly admit that providing care to people in need is a bad thing. But we're just getting started with William Timmons.
They're going there, and I guess when the census occurs, it's going to result in New York and California and Illinois receiving a disproportionate percent of their representation, because we do not apportion the census based off of citizens. We apportion the census based off of humans. And I mean, I think that's a big problem. The amount of human misery occurring in this country because of the lawlessness at our southern border is just shocking. It seems like he's destroying the American dream. They're not safe. The defund the police movement has resulted in enormous violence and insecurity in our cities. And I mean, our country's just on the wrong track. And we really need to change course.
Now that Timmons is done hiding his bigotry behind this fake persona of actually caring for the American people and wanting to restore the myth of the American dream, let's hear Texas progressive Jasmine Crockett's response to the absolutely fear-mongering rant.
I do want to address the last things that were brought up about the census, and I'm not really sure if my colleague recognizes that Texas actually got 2 new congressional seats. The state of Texas actually grew a whopping 4 million people, and because of those 4 million people that came into Texas, or from wherever they came from, we actually got 2 new congressional seats, which Texas historically has been a red state, and New York actually lost a seat, which historically has been a blue state. So I did want to make sure we put some facts on the record.
Crockett does a masterful job in debunking Timmons' depiction of the Great Replacement theory, while simultaneously shooting down the idea that the census should only count citizens and no one else. And look, she's far from done. Believe that.
In fact, there's a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric and blaming of immigrants when certain things happen. And based on things coming out of this committee, we seem to believe that immigrants are the reason why crime is up and why our communities are less safe. So I did my research, and I want to go through some of it with you. Sheriff, do you know if within the last year between 2022 and 2023, if there was an increase or decrease in murder and negligent homicide in Tarrant County?
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it did not increase.
Okay. In fact, it went down by almost 17%. So great job. What about manslaughter by negligence, or we call it criminally negligent homicide?
I believe it also went down.
Yes.
In the past, it may be on ticking up at the moment on intoxicated and homicide may be ticking up at the moment in 24.
Okay, well, we had a 56.52% decrease. How about rape?
All those categories we believe went down.
Absolutely. So there actually was a decrease by 3.35% in rape. Robbery went down 4.5%, and both aggravated and simple assault went collectively down by 3.18%. And theft went down by 3.89%. This is at the same time in which we're talking about the migrant community and stoking these fears that they're bringing all of this trauma and this crime and violence to our communities. But when we look at a Texas community, Tarrant County, actually everything has gone down. And I do want to thank you for your service in that way, because it takes a team. It can't just be one thing. It means we've got to have great law enforcement, but we also have to have really good policies, and we honestly need to be honest about the data that we see.
So what I love about Crockett's approach to our argument against the Republican talking point that Democrats are somehow conspiring to get more congressional seats in blue states by offering better social safety nets and accepting migrant and immigrant populations into the area is that she does it with such calmness and poise. And she doesn't have to. She could be, assertive and very demonstrative, but she's like, I'm gonna do it with a smile. Like, just so we're clear, here are the facts, right? And you can't argue with that. You can't argue. And now he's looking dumb.